Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the inaugural episode of Superintendents Unplugged, In Depth with Davis, the podcast where we'll dive deep into the world of educational leadership. I'm your host, Addison Davis, and I'm thrilled to have you join me as we embark on the inspiring journey together. As a superintendent once myself, I understand the challenges and complexities that come with leading a school district. But what I've come to realize is that there's abundance of amazing work being done by superintendents all across our country. This podcast is a platform to shine a spotlight on their incredible accomplishments and innovative approaches. Each episode will bring you exclusive interviews and superintendents from various districts across our country, both big and small, urban and rural, as they share their personal stories, triumphs, and even their moments of vulnerability. We will explore the strategies they employ to tackle the ever-evolving landscape of education, from fostering equity and inclusivity to embracing technology and preparing students for their future. But this podcast isn't just about showcasing success. It's about fostering a community of educational leaders who can learn from one another, share their experiences, and collectively navigate the complexities of our role. We'll discuss the tough topics as well, the difficult decisions, and the innovative solutions that are transforming education for the better. So while you're an educator, a parent, a student, or simply someone who's passionate about education, this podcast is for you. Superintendents Unplugged is your behind-the-scenes pass to the world of educational leadership, where we uncover the stories that inspire, motivate, and empower every one of us. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and entertained as we embark on this incredible journey together. I can't wait to introduce you to the remarkable superintendents who are changing the educational landscape one district at a time. Welcome to another episode of Superintendents Unplugged, In Depth with Davis. Today we have a treat. We have one of the greatest leaders that has done some really cool work, not only as superintendent across the nation, but also does some cool work with working to be able to build the capacity of future superintendents and finding the right superintendents for school district. As we know, this is a growing need within our country. Today we have Steve Joel. Thank you so very much, Doc, for being here. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for that intro, Addison. I'm honored.
You know what? We see the state of superintendencies. It's just not an easy deal, not an easy gig to transition into. You know what? You've been asking with your firm to be able to go find the best, the brightest, to be able to expand a bench of finding the right leaders to go to school districts. How hard has that been in this process, especially in the last couple of years?
It's been difficult, right? And search firms really try to find the best match for the board that's in place at that time and the board and the community. But as you know, conditions change, right? So there's board elections, there's major controversies that emerge, and superintendents become the target for all of that. When you lay on the pandemic, and we realize how the pandemic basically changed the fiber of society, particularly when schools now and school board meetings become the political battleground, there's just a lot of superintendents that took early retirement if something bad didn't happen to them, to get themselves out. And then we're trying to find this new wave of replacements. And what we're learning is that there's an awful lot of number twos in good districts that don't really want that number one spot because they've observed what's happened. The average tenure for an urban superintendent is 3.2, 3.3, 4 in the suburbs. That's not a long time.
It's not a long time. And you know what? You get so stuck in the work. I remember as I transitioned to Hillsborough, I started the next week, COVID started. So many superintendents in big, large school districts elected to transition out of that particular time. You're so right about that. And then having to fill some of these it became a domino effect. And one thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is that individuals that can do the job don't want to do the job, and individuals that want to do the job and can't do the job want to do the job. And it's just become hard in that space. So as you go into these communities and you're facing these complexities, how are you trying to find and leverage, the best candidates to bring to the table? I mean, there's got to be screening processes, engagements. What does that look like from your side?
So whenever we take a job, particularly in urban search, one of the things that I insist when we do our presentation, even at the risk of not getting it, is that if there's a history of turnover, that the trustees or the board are willing to look at their own culture, right? Because I can't talk to a superintendent like you after they've had a number of superintendents in a short period of time and say, look, I think it's different this time, right?
Sure.
So we have to show evidence of that. So really, we work with the board, we create the criteria, we start the application process. As you're well aware, this is a recruiter's game.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to acquire names, which is why AASA is a wonderful place.
Beautiful place to do it.
You get way more no's than you get yeses when you're working a particularly good search. You try to get the compensation up as high as you possibly
That's
can,
right.
because that will attract some people. And then ultimately, once they make a match, one of the things that our firm does, and it's what I brought into the McPherson and Jacobson brand, is I come in and I do a facilitated all-day retreat with the board and the new superintendent, and we really start to create that foundation for the culture. And it also includes setting up performance objectives. So there isn't any mystery as to what the superintendent's going to be evaluated on in year one. Now, one of the things I have learned, and you sort of said it, if you're not an experienced superintendent, there is a strong, you just don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
And so I believe
a different world.
It's a different world. Those of us that led through the pandemic and have the wounds to show for it, and I'm a recovering superintendent, right? And you sort of are too.
Yes, sir.
That experience is worth a lot of value to a school district, because in that short 3-year window of the pandemic, we had a chance to see the best and the worst in people and in organizations and in responses and in politics and, not only at the local, state, but also the national level.
That's right.
And you can't get that experience anyplace else.
I'm going to tell you right now, while you wish nothing on anybody, the pandemic taught me so much how to be a leader, how to be graceful, how to be strategic, how to map out things, how to be actively engaged in every facet of an organization, and really how to create clarity, simplicity, and execution. You had to do it. When you're looking at, it's got to be hard, because every school district it has unique needs. And one thing I do see, and I see individuals that are applying for every job that they can, and they're on like 6 different lists. Explain what that does to a candidate when individuals see that they're everywhere on everybody's list.
They're not going to get a job. We see
Say that again.
They're not going to get a job. We see the frequent flyers all the time.
That's right.
They apply for every one of ours. I'm sure they apply for the other firms. I always tell young candidate, when young is anybody under 60 now, right? I always tell them, be strategic in what you're looking for and make sure that your skill set matches up with the profile that's been developed.
Sure.
And don't bullet apply.
That's right.
So the best candidates that I work with, it's this job. This is the one that they want. And as a search consultant, I'm really honest with superintendents, particularly sitting superintendents. If I think an internal is likely to get it, I'll let them know.
Sure.
Not to get them to drop out, but to make sure that...
That's clarity. And I appreciate that.
Well, I don't want them to use their political capital.
Let's
wait for the next one. But, I'd say it's 50-50 in the urban searches right now that are the large districts, where the internal versus the external, there's a lot of districts that would say, we need new blood.
Sure.
We need new energy. And then there's some districts that would say, let's see what's out there.
Sure.
Because we know what the known commodity is in our existing district.
Thank you for saying that, because, if you keep applying, there's something going on there. So you got to be very strategic of where you go. Before I transitioned to Hillsborough, there were a couple openings that, hey, Addison, sure, if you want it. But I was like, I'm not going to apply for all these. One school district I want to apply for, and I think it's meaningful. And in that spot, as you have individuals that want to transition to the superintendency or moving from one location to the next, they need to do their homework. The homework on the district, the homework on the politics. What advice would you give those individuals?
You said it, homework, right? Know the culture, research the district up and down, talk to acquaintances that might have some info. But here's the biggest thing that I see that superintendents get tripped up by. They take a job and that high of, wow, I just got this big district, got some national exposure. The reality of it is, if you don't go in and engage stakeholders, including the board, one-to-one relationships with board members, collective relationships, initiate strategic thinking and strategic planning, and if you fail to do that and you just get mired in with the 4 or 5 things that board members have as personal projects, I promise you're not going to make the national average, right?
That's right.
So
that 3 years is hard to come by.
It is. And so our goal really as a firm is we want our superintendents to be there 3 to 5 minimum.
Sure.
And so I tell boards all the time, get the money, the compensation up as high as you can, and then give the longest contract that you can so that they can move the needle. And I tell every board I work with, if your superintendent doesn't stay 5 years, you are not going to move the needle like you and your community have told us you want to.
You know what? Thank you, Doc, for saying that. You know what? You've sat in the chair. You've been remarkable and created systemic change for individuals. You put some of the best and the brightest in seats. And I can say this because I had an opportunity to work my mentors are Nikolai Vitti and Alberto Carvalho. And Nikolai Vitti is probably one of the best individuals that I owe a lot of who I became as a leader. I mean, and you were the guy that selected that individual to come on board and recruited him to come to Duval County. And he did some transformational work, I think 6 years plus. So, I mean, you talk about building and having that right placement of that process. You know, these individuals have to be able to understand, find the right place, go there and do some cool work every day.
Well, and you're good pedigree, right? So you learn from the best of the breed.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's also important for superintendents coming up too, is who are your role models, right?
Yeah.
Who are the people that tapped
coaches?
you on the shoulder? Yeah. Well, and you know this. I mean, there are people that we work with every single day that they don't have any idea that somebody like you and I are watching them, and we see something in them.
Yes, sir.
And we say, you need to think about this. This might be an opportunity for you. That's how I got into it.
Yes,
That's
sir.
probably how you got into it.
That's right, sir. And you know what? Mentors and connectors and coaches are so important in this process. And listen, I think every superintendent should have a coach. Professional coach. I think that every superintendent should be actively engaged because there's things you can't say to your cabinet. There's things you can't say to your board. And it is so important when you're trying to do customized content, when you're trying to do customized assessments or bring in something that's really sophisticated, you got to have somebody to work through those process, or even dealing with safety issues. All those are in the forefront of those matters. You know, we talk about 5 years that just brings the greatest stability. You know, why is it so important for superintendents to work that angle and for a board to really accept it?
I explain it really like this. Year 1 is look, listen, and learn, right? Learn the culture. Buy a house in the community. Let people know that you're fully invested in what you're doing. Year 2 is initiate strategic planning. It's going to take you a whole year to do it. Year 3, adopt the plan. 4 and 5, implement the plan. And if you can get to 5, now you can evaluate the plan.
That's right.
Right now, that's real substantive transformational change. But too many superintendents take a job, and what they've heard the board say to them when they got in is, we've got to cut the budget. We've got to reorganize the existing administrative structure.
Got to cut.
We've got to engage the stakeholders / the critics, right? And that ultimately is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And so I tell boards this all the time. When you hire us, I want to work to help you establish a long-time perspective.
Sure.
That's when the good work is. And then I say to them, then you have to work to keep your superintendent, because I promise you, if they turn Duval County around, like in Vitti's case, somebody else is going to be tapping them on the shoulder saying, we got another opportunity for you.
That's right.
Good, quality, successful superintendents have lots of opportunity. They go anywhere they want.
I agree. I mean, it's a space now where it's like free agency, and there's free agency not only in the educational space, but outside in the private space as well. And we try to keep our best in breed and our best, great leaders in the space for kids, because we need them so very much. And you know what? In the first year, listen, I poke the bear every day, but if I had to do it all over again, I spend that year learning and growing versus being a disruptor versus changing. In the first 5 months, I think I've changed the SIS. I changed the organizational structure. I changed so many principals, cabinet members, and curriculum. And I think it just becomes too much too fast, and you become a disruptor. There's nothing wrong with being a disruptor, but there's seasons and timings when that disruptor has to take place. But going in and understand that project management and change management are two different things. And it's about people, and you've got to understand people to be successful in this business.
When a new superintendent is hired, there's a lot of anxiety in the existing structure, right? So one of the things that the superintendent, in my opinion, should do, and this is what I advise, is get to know the people that are there. There will be casualties, right? There's going to be people that are going to say, I don't like what Joel and Davis are saying. I'm going to be out of here. They're going to implode. They're going to take themselves out. But the mistake that I see superintendents do at all levels is they get this job. They've got this compelling mandate to make change, and they bring one or two people with them, and all of a sudden the internal culture is really, really negative, and that gets them in too. So not only is the board a factor in terms of how they perceive your leadership, but the internal staff is also a big factor, because as you know, that cabinet, all they have to do is when somebody says, so how are things going? Not so good. I remember one time somebody said, well, all that is gold does not glitter. All that glitters is not gold.
Yeah, right.
They said that about a brand new superintendent.
Oh, man.
There was a vacancy 6 months later.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to try to avoid.
It's in relationships, as I said, are so important, and going in and understanding the dynamics of it, because you're talking about situational leadership and understanding that the way to move anything is through people, is to actively engage them, allow them to understand what's working, what's not, what we can do differently, and be a participant in that process. So, for you see it, and, so many, what do you have open now? You talk about school districts across the country. What's open that you're dealing with today?
Well, right now I'm working with Washoe County,
okay.
And I think that's a really good district.
It's a council district. Awesome.
It's a council district. Board is very positive.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about today, the conversations that I've had with them, they're seeking a long-term leader.
Yeah.
Our company just picked up Howard County in Maryland. There's 3 or 4 others that we're working on. There's a couple in Georgia. So California, we have an arrangement with the California School Board Association.
Yes, sir.
So we pick up a lot of those searches. I'm doing a fairly small search in Nebraska. That's one of the better Class A school districts. So I don't know. There's 15 or 20 right now in the books. But here's what's going to happen.
Scary.
We're near the end of the search season, so there's going to be a lot of people. In my news feed today, there's 3 or 4 that just announced their retirement this week.
Yes, sir.
Or exit. There's going to be another election in November in some states.
Yeah.
Well,
means new board members.
New board members. And then there's going to be structural damage inflicted as a result of that.
That's correct. And for those who aspire to be a superintendent and are going through this process for engagement, going through the interview process, getting prepared and ready, any advice you have for them, those individuals? Because there are some really good cabinet members ready to lead. Me personally, I think that there's benefit of moving outside of the current district that you have. I know there's also benefit of keeping stability internally, but I think greater opportunity are outside. But any recommendations you have for those individuals?
I'm doing a presentation later tomorrow for ASSA on that very topic, and it's really about be intentional with regard to how you approach the work, right? So the look, listen, and learn, develop the individual relationships, be present, model the kind of behavior that you want, and that before you work yourself into any kind of a change mandate. But here's the other thing. The people who you are working for and working with need to see courage, need to see confidence, need to see resilience. And as you know, people haven't experienced that as a number 2. So I would say to an aspiring superintendent, find those mentors that have been through it and pick their brain about the strategies that they used.
That's great. And it's so very well said. And, I thank you for your time today. Thank you for what you do to be able to find some leaders that want to do some cool things for kids. And that's what we're trying to find. Those individuals that really genuinely have the heart, and not to make decisions about adults, but making decisions about kids every single day. I know it's not easy, but we need to find those right leaders that will come to this work, stay in this work, and allow boards to let superintendents lead and understand They're not going to make every decision the one they want to make the best decision. They're trying to make the best decision. It's not always going to be roses with it. It's a yo-yo effect, but know that they just need support and love to be able to do this job.
Well, and I appreciate all that you're doing, right? I mean, you made the decision to step away, and now you're it's very hard. It wasn't for me. I was 68 years old. I'd done it for 37 years, last 12 in Lincoln. So
yes, sir.
I was actually going to retire before the pandemic.
Yes, sir.
But I have to tell you, thank you for the work that you're doing to support the work of the leaders in this country.
Yes, sir.
I have this eternal optimism that we are going to get through all of this.
Yes, sir.
And education is going to continue to be, it's going to be the difference maker in our society.
Yes, sir.
And so we just have to support the work of the superintendents and make sure that they find good places where they can practice their trade.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. Well, you've heard it here on Superintendents Unplugged, In Depth with Davis, with Steve Joel, one of the greatest out there. For those who are aspiring to be leaders, try to reach out, make that connection to him. He can help you make that transition smooth, but most importantly, finding the right situation for you versus applying for everything. It is so important to do your homework as you transition to positions, because superintendency is the greatest opportunity to engage community, children, faith-based partners, parents, in the holistic community. So until next time, we look forward to seeing you. Thank you for what you do every day.